what I would like to delve into first, obviously, like you talked about there, before it was called, what it's called now, proactive fitness, it was called proactive performance. And I wanted to ask you kind of a bit more depth in terms of what was the switch like going from a sort of semi-professional sports, like, even full-time, I think you imagine you was first, and then going from that to becoming a full-time business owner, and like, how did you find that as a change to you?
Yeah, difficult. I mean, one of the reasons that I wanted to open the gym, obviously, I loved training. I loved being around the boys, as it were. And as much as I loved playing the games, it's the atmosphere that you get, as you all know yourself, when you're around like-minded people, and that training environment and the work that you put in, having like an end goal almost, like seeing the fruits of your labor with feeling stronger and fitter and better on the field. Because I was a lazy bastard originally. I mean, from like late teen years, when stuff starts to get a little bit more serious, I hated it. I hated conditioning. I hated the weights room. It wasn't something, I probably told myself I was interested in it, but when it came down to it and shit got hard, I wasn't the hardest working guy there. And then I don't know what it was, like I just had this moment where I realized that the harder I worked off the field, the easier everything was going to be. And I think it's probably like in my years at Doncaster, and then especially when I went to York, I started training properly and looking into strength and conditioning, and it became an interest for me. It was a hobby even though obviously it was affecting what I did on the field, because I'm from a generation of athletes, let's call them, that when I was younger, training was about getting big. It was about looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. There wasn't any, power cleans. There wasn't, front squats and RDLs and what have you. It was about pec flies and fucking calf raises. Do you know what I mean? So learning that for myself, it literally was. It was about, that whole Bradford Bulls tight t-shirts. Everybody looks like a little bodybuilder running around rugby field. And, I started to learn a little bit, and I was interested in the science behind it anyway. And I was always interested in the anatomy, weirdly, from being a kid. And I sort of looked at, like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do after this? And a company called Fit UK came into a lot of professional sports clubs at that time and delivered courses to players to give them something to do, once they're finished. Nobody earns enough money in rugby to retire on. It's not football. No. So there's initiatives put into place by the Rugby League to give people something as far as education is concerned. And that started my journey, because I did the PT qualification, but I also then started to do some tutoring for Fit UK, because I was a qualified tutor as well. So I sort of started getting these ideas about the gym, but opening a gym when you've got 2 kids and a mortgage and a wife, and it's like, there's absolutely no security in that whatsoever. And I wasn't a businessman. It is a big risk. It was a massive risk. And I remortgaged my house to do that at the time. And I look back now and I think, how the fuck did I manage to do that? Like, how have we got to the point we're at now? And, it was a case of trying to cover my bases. So you'll remember way back when I did open the gym, we had a room in there. So Fit UK used to pay rent on the room. I was also getting paid a wage from Fit UK to deliver the courses, which kind of covered the overheads, and it gave me a bit of a security blanket as far as my own personal income was concerned. And then it allowed me to open this facility where guys like you, that was sporting, that was rugby players, athletes, weightlifters, powerlifters, could have a gym that they could flourish in, because, your typical commercial gym, they're getting better, to be honest, but at that time, they probably weren't the best environments to be training in for people like you and me. I basically created a gym for myself. I created a place that I'd love to train in. And I knew there was like-minded people like myself that would also feel the same, which you can probably, agree with, because you've been there for 7 years now. We wanted to create an atmosphere and an environment that replicated everything that I loved about rugby. All the boys in the free weight room together, all the boys after a session when you've been flogged in pre-season and it's fucking horrible at the time, but that feeling that you get after the session and everybody doing that together is something that is really difficult to replicate. And your average trainer and your weekend warriors it's very difficult for them to experience that. So I wanted to create at that time an environment where people could feel that experience as well. It wasn't about, you know, tight t-shirts and bicep curls. It was about serious trainers, you know, and that's what we created, and it was amazing. And I think we've kind of kept that culture to this day, even though it's a completely different place as far as the business setup is concerned and our development as a gym, you know, in a positive way. But at that time, it was like, fuck yeah, you literally felt like you'd walked into a pre-season session at a rugby club at a professional team. Everybody's doing fucking power cleans and, you know, front squatting heavy weights. It was like it was amazing. Everybody was buzzing off each other. But, you know, I knew there was something in that, and that's what I was passionate about. And I think that's what gave me the drive to make it work. You know, I've said already a couple of times, I didn't have a fucking clue. I didn't know what VAT was. I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. I didn't know, you know, profit margins and all the things that take up my day-to-day life now. You know, what I did know was I was a good coach, and I knew that I could get the best out of people. You know, I did my UKSCA accreditation. You know, I was in the top 7% qualification-wise of coaches in the country. And I knew that I had the passion to make it work. And that's something I'm a big believer in now. Like, it's something that I kind of preach about is, I think for me, if shit's left up to me, I'm really confident in my own abilities to make things work. If I want something bad enough, I'll fucking get it. You know, if I want to make something work, I'll get it. And I will take responsibility for that. I hate leaving shit up to other people. I'm a pest when when you're chasing orders or you know, you rely. This house move, for example, I'm ringing the solicitors every day. I'm ringing the estate agents every day, like, what's going on? Because I'm a little bit of a control freak when it comes to that. So I knew that it was a risk, but I knew I'd make it work because I had to. I had a choice. You know what I mean? I just remortgaged my house and put all my eggs into one basket. And, you know, luckily it's worked out really, really well. But because we made changes, because we learned, because we made failures, and because we adapted, you know, it's worked to what it is today. You know, we can go into that in more detail later on if you want to, but, you know, it was a hard transition, mate. It was a hard transition, to go back to your question. But the one thing that I did really, really enjoy, and the one thing that I'm looking at, people ask me if I miss rugby. I don't miss playing rugby. I would miss it more if I didn't work in an environment that I work in now. If I sat at a desk 9 to 5, you know, in shirt and trousers and stuff like that, it'd kill me. But, you know, the one thing that I wanted to do was create an environment that I want to work in, you know, and be around people that I want to be around, and create a culture, and a culture that I loved playing sport and carrying that camaraderie over. So, you know, we knew that we was onto something, but we just didn't know really how to steer that ship, if that makes sense.